Okay, this video is all about the camera effects panel in Ecamm Live. This panel will allow you to kind of go into a little bit more advanced features of adjusting and customizing the way that your camera feeds look. So it ranges from contrast and brightness and all those things, all the way to using things like advanced LUTs. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. All right, let's start at the top of the camera effects panel where you see a drop down menu. When you click on that, you'll see all of your camera placeholders as well as the physically attached cameras to your computer system. If you edit a placeholder, that means that no matter what source you're attaching to that placeholder, that will actually be apparent. So if you're zooming in on camera A, then it'll always be camera A being zoomed in. So let's say, for example, on this one, I'm going to zoom in on camera A, but you'll notice that this isn't moving because right now this camera source is the direct camera source. But if I switched it to camera A position, it's zoomed in a lot, right? So let me just zoom into my face a little bit more. And then if I happen to go to the camera switcher and change that to the other camera source, it's going to be zoomed in a lot because you've edited the placeholder, not the source itself. So let me switch this back so it looks proper. And so what you want to do is just to make sure that are you editing the universal placeholder position or are you editing the actual camera source itself? So if I wanted to just edit this camera source whenever I switch to a scene that has the camera directly, right? Because you can see that I've selected one of my deck link sources here, then I can go ahead and say adjust and do all of those different types of things. So just keep that in mind. Now, one option here is the green screen option. So some people are actually using green screens, and that's completely fine. You just, again, you need to know that you need to have really, really good lighting for that, right? But if you do have a green screen behind you, you can go ahead and click on this green screen button, and it enables the green screen. And what'll happen is it'll knock everything out. So you'll see here that I've actually got a green cloth, right? Because I don't have a green screen with me right now. So this green cloth is not knocked out. You can see all of the stuff. There's nothing behind there. However, if I click on the green screen option, you'll notice now the green is knocked out. And by default, it shows an image in the background. So that image is adjustable through here where I can click on change that and maybe into a beach scene or maybe into a castle scene like in the background. Now, this is used for, generally speaking, it's used behind you so that you can change the background behind you. So if I kind of hide this behind my head, you notice that it doesn't look quite right. So let me just change that to the beach. You notice these got these little shadows or it's hiding behind there. So what you can do is you can actually adjust the fade level and you increase or decrease that based upon how you see fit. If I go too strong, then everything else gets kind of knocked out. If I just bring it down to the point where my normal video is looking good and my hair is cutting out, there you go. So that is a good amount of green screen knockout. So you can see here, if it was on this side, that's my hair shadow, then it gets knocked out pretty well, right? So that is how you would adjust your green screen. Now, some people don't have a green screen, they actually have a blue screen. And if that's the case, you're going to hit the blue. And because my lighting is blue in the background, it's knocking that out. So, if it was enough for me to light up the background in blue, I could knock out the whole thing. And then I can just put any image or video in the background. And so having said that, if you want to go ahead and do a custom image, you can click on this button here, and that will open up a Finder window, and it'll allow you to add an image in the background or a video in the background. Or you can go ahead to click on this drop-down menu and select any one of the pre-filled options through Ecamm Live and switch it from there. So these are all of your options for the background. Now, the other options for chroma key or green screen, let's just use this as an example. Aside from adjusting the strength and intensity of that, I can just make it transparent. So if I don't want to have anything in the background like an image, and I just want to just kind of put an image of myself on top of a presentation or a share screen, I can go ahead and click on transparent, and you'll see the background image of my presentation is what shows up. And so I could theoretically just put a presentation on the behind my video, and that presentation will show, and I'm just kind of hovering above it. So if you want to see more about the detailed advanced features of green screening and chroma key, then go ahead and just pick that video in the playlist, and I kind of go dive deep into the whole thing about that and actually use a real green screen. This one's just a quick tutorial for that. And this next option is called zoom and pan. Essentially, it allows you to zoom into your video source or move it around accordingly. If, let's say, for example, your camera's a little bit further, however, it's at a comfortable distance physically, but the zoom, like you're just too small in that video, you can go ahead and enable the zoom and pan feature, and that will activate this. And when you move it, this little toggle slide here, it zooms in or enlarges your video, or if the other way around, it kind of makes it a little bit smaller. Generally speaking, most people zoom in. Now, once you've done that, you'll notice that there's little grayed out area because that area that's visible is now shrinking. So if I wanted to do something like this, I could now pan around and move here. So if I wanted to just be closer to my head. Now, what would somebody be using this for? Well, a couple of things. One is that you could create a scene called me. I could duplicate it, me, zoom, let's call it the emphasis or emphasis mode, EMPHASIS. And I can say for this scene, I'm going to be zoomed in. So for this one, it's like, hey, this is me and et cetera, et cetera. And I've got to really emphasize this. Do not blank be blank, right? I can do something like that. So you can play around with those different types of zoom. So it's almost like you have two different cameras, but you really don't. Another thing that some people do is if they've got two people on standing side by side or in a presentation, right? They've got two people here. What they could do is they could say me left, and then also me right. Okay, so for example, the me scene is going to be both of us, right? So let's pretend my hand is the second person here. So me scene is here, and then the me right is going to be zoomed in, and it is the hand. All right, so that's this one. And then me left is going to be zoomed in, and it's going to be my face. So technically speaking, it could be looks like one camera system, a second camera for this person, and the second camera for or third camera for this person, and do that. So we can actually mimic multi-camera scenes. So that's something that you could do with the zoom and pan function. Now, the next item here is picture settings. So you'll know that if you have a camera and it's just you need to make manual adjustments to it, or there's a certain type of a feel and style that you want your video to look at, you can go ahead and make those adjustments and changes. If you're wondering, can I make adjustments and changes to my guests' cameras as well? Absolutely. When you bring on a guest through Ecamm for Zoom or through interview mode, their camera sources will appear here. And when you make these adjustments, that will appear on changed on their camera source for that specific scene. And I'm going to get to you about that in one quick second. But right now, you can notice that the brightness, I can go ahead and adjust the brightness. I can go ahead and adjust the color temperature from very cold to very warm. I can change the tint from more pink or fuchsia to more green. And then I can also make the saturation really, really saturated or almost black and white or just very muted tone. And then the gamma is kind of like more of the adjustment or exposure. So you can adjust anything like that from there. Now, if you messed up and you're like, oh, something looks really, really bad, you can go ahead and click the reset button and that will reset it back to default. So that is just a nice way for you to make some minor adjustments to that video quality for yourself. And it's only going to be applicable to that camera scene. Again, as I said, I'll talk about that in one quick second. The next option here is this little button here that says LUTs, L-U-T. That's basically stands for lookup table. And essentially what this allows you to do is use mildly moderate to professional camera systems. A lot of the Sony cameras and the Canon cameras allow you to create basically send a video signal over your video feed. It's called a log file or log view, and it looks grayed out on the camera itself, right? It looks a little bit grayed out, but what it's doing is it's actually increasing the dynamic range of the sensor or the camera, and then sending that over through HDMI. So what happens there is instead of the traditional normal look that your camera's setting, it will actually look a little bit on the gray side. So let me just do that right now. So you'll now notice that my video has grayed out a little bit compared to what it was before. And now I'm going to go ahead and apply a lookup table or a LUT. So when I click that button, I can go and manage all my different LUTs. And I've got two in particular that I use here. One is from one of our Ecamm fan members, Marshall. Marshall is amazing. And let me just use this LUT that he has created for members to use. And what you see is it increases the, I guess, the range of the actual camera itself, and it kind of increases the amount of saturation in some of the colors and tones. Now I can adjust that accordingly, right? If this is the kind of look that you're looking for, I can go ahead here and change my other LUT, which is the Chrome LUT, which is one that I kind of use often. And it's got this more of a mildly muted video to it, but the colors still pop out. So this is actually an orange shirt that I am wearing, and that is a little bit more on the teal side, the lighting in the background, but it has now adjusted to it. So you can see this is actually the normal camera output that's coming from the camera with the picture profile that's adjusted. But then I can make that change and say add some of this LUT feature to it. So if you're a little bit more of an advanced user, you can go ahead and use these LUTs to adjust that picture profile so that it looks the way that you actually want it to look. And there are videos on the internet on how to create your own as well. But this, again, is a little bit more of an advanced feature. All right, and these next options here are the different camera options. So it allows you to mirror the actual image itself. Now, this mirror here is meant to actually edit the recording or streaming file. It does not mirror just for your view, and everything on in the stream is going to come out correctly. So if I just held up a piece of paper and it had the numbers 1, 2, and 3 written on it, it might look, it's going to look proper again in the video itself and the recording. And as my preview, I'm looking at it, I'll actually be able to read it from left to right, 1, 2, 3. However, what happens sometimes is people are like, okay, well, if I put my right hand up here, physically this is on the right side, but when I'm looking at myself on the screen, it's the opposite end. It's not the mirror image. And so that sometimes confuses people, because I know that I've got this other light that's in the background, or I've got this gold cup on one of my shoulders. But if I go ahead and say, oh, there's the gold cup, right? So, you have to know your left and rights. Now, sometimes people use it for this feature. I personally, honestly, would not, because you do look different when you're reflected in your image. So, but anyway, you can do something like that if you'd like. It's also used as different camera effects as well. If you want, you can turn this camera scene black and white, which is also a nice little feel. And what happens is that this image will be black and white, while this scene will actually be normal. So let me just reset this. This scene will be normal, right? So the one reason why people might use this is for countdown timers or different types of camera effects for old time scenes kind of thing. So you can use black and white, or you can go to sepia, or you can add sepia and black and white together. I'm not sure why you would do that, but it can actually be done. So the sepia is kind of like that old style type of photography look. So I use this sometimes for my countdown timers, but it's up to you. These are just two extra little features that were added. You can also add a blur effect to this. So I could actually make my video blurry. Now, when you do this, sometimes people are doing some really cool things where, let's say the background version of my image is blurry, but when I go here and add, let's say, a camera, I'm not going to be blurry in this one. That's kind of weird. Oh, look, I can make a really big head on my shoulder. So it, you can play around with how this often looks. And again, it really just comes down to what you are trying to achieve in your videos, right? So now let's just switch that out, because that just doesn't look right. Anyway, so I'm going to get rid of that blur effect. Now, the next option here is called Deinterlace. Deinterlace is not really used anymore unless you have a camera that has interlacing. So it might be a 1080i, or actually some 4K cameras actually do interlacing. So a lot of not necessarily the video camera, or sorry, DSLR or mirrorless cameras, but those old school video cameras, sometimes a lot of those actually use interlaced video. And essentially it means that your video might be 30 frames per second, but it's 15 frames on these lines and 15 frames. And it doesn't look right when you're moving and panning. So the interlace allows your software to correct that part where you start to see certain types of lines. Again, generally speaking, you're not going to notice anything if you got the newer type of equipment. Rotate here allows you to rotate this camera source. And it goes 90, 180, 270, and then 360, right? So it allows you to change that around. That could be used, for example, I showed you earlier my overhead camera, right? So for me, this is correct, but this is actually the way the camera is recording because the camera is upside down on my desk. It's not facing the correct way. It's actually upside down. So I had to rotate this 180 degrees to make Doc look like he is upright, and go from there. So that is one option here. Now the other two buttons here apply to all scenes. Now this is going to be an important one. You remember when I said earlier in this video where you can change some of the picture settings or even some of these camera options and the rotations, but only on specific scenes. So if I had this scene of me and then this scene of me that was, let's say, zoomed and panned in, right? So if I've got these two scenes, but I'm like, I actually want them to be the exact same, I don't want it to be zoomed in, I could go here and say, apply to all scenes, and that will take all of these different feature sets, including the zoom and panning, the picture profiles, and all of these settings, and it's going to apply it to the camera in every single scene. Now it's going to give you a warning. It's like, we're going to do this, are you sure? You hit apply all. Now you'll see here, if I go back to this original scene, it's the exact same zoom, it's the exact same setting. So so if you know that by default you always want it to zoom in because your camera shot's a little bit too wide, then you can go ahead and do that. But now you'll see the default was zoomed in and I unzoomed it. So I can just go ahead and here and say apply to all, and now every single scene that has that camera is now back to the original settings, or these settings that I have here. And last but not least, the last button here says set default camera. Now, if you have this option here where you are, let's see, under video, where you have default source mode is camera, the default camera is the one that will be selected whenever you hit plus, or when you hit this plus sign. So if I hit plus, and I know that, let's say, for example, I know that my main camera that you're looking at right now is the default. Whenever I hit plus, that camera is going to be chosen. So now if I choose the other camera, so if I go back to this overhead camera of Doc, and I choose this as the default camera, now every time I hit plus, it's going to be the camera of Doc, right? So just keep that in mind when you, if you've got multiple cameras and you want to be the same camera or the correct camera or the one camera that you've chosen to be the default whenever you create a new scene, then you'll just use that button to set it as the default. Otherwise, again, in my tip, I basically said to leave this as a blank, especially if you're going to use a lot of overlays. That way you don't have this camera scene that's running in the background unnecessarily using up resources. I hope you're really enjoying this Ecamm Live Masterclass, because this has been an absolute joy for me to actually create. And the reason why is because I just love Ecamm Live, and I love the whole aspect of content creation, and I hope that you do as well. So please go ahead, leave some comments below. Let me know how you feel about this. Let me know if you have other questions about the specific topic that I'm sharing in this video. And another thing that I really want you to do right now is I want you to go ahead and scan this QR code or click the link in the description below, because this is where I'm going to be housing not only just this Ecamm Live Masterclass, but a lot of cool extras that are not going to be found on YouTube. So you have to register for absolutely for free in order to grab this content. It's in my member portal. So go ahead, scan the QR code or click the link in the description, and I will see you on the other side. Now, back to the regular show. All right, how are we doing right now? This has been a lot of information that I've been sharing on this Ecamm Live Masterclass, and we just finished up the camera effects panel. There's only a couple more windows to go, and you know what? You'll be set. You'll now have the fundamentals and the foundations of understanding how to use Ecamm Live, how to customize it for your uses when you're creating your content, whether it be recorded or live streamed. So keep on keeping on, and if you want, just go ahead and click on all the other videos in this playlist. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and click here to go back to the playlist to watch the other videos.